Hey, it's Tito, Jeff Thitoff coming at you live from Eugene, Oregon, on enemy territory here for the game between the Ohio State Buckeyes and Oregon Ducks coming up on Saturday. This is the Buckeye Blitz. You can follow me on the X at That Happens. Also, we're brought to you on FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. So much to get into today. First, I want to remind you, download the app, the free app for Apple and Android users for FanStream Sports. You can get all of our around-the-clock programming, so many great shows we have all the time, adding new ones as well. So go check that out. Also, FanStream Sports Facebook group. You can connect with hosts and fans. FanStreamSports.com is the website. All right, let's talk Ohio State, Oregon now. What a monster game this is, not only in the Big Ten, but nationally for the Buckeyes and the Ducks. Both teams coming in undefeated. Ohio State ranked second in the country. Oregon is third. And look, I fully expect these two teams will meet again when it comes to the Big Ten championship game. Both teams should be in the playoff this year as well, the CFP, the expanded one, as they go to 12 teams. I expect, though, that the winner, though, gets the leg up on this, although it's one of those things where what's really going to matter is who wins the last one, because they are going to. I do fully believe. I don't see another contender. I don't think Penn State's a contender to be there. They're a contender. I don't think it's realistic to think Penn State gets in over one of these two teams. All it does for the loser is it puts more pressure on them to not lose another Big Ten game. And Ohio State still has to play at Penn State. They still play a kind of a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde Nebraska team. Luckily, that game is in Columbus, though. They still play undefeated Indiana, but I feel like Indiana, they're undefeated. They haven't really played anybody yet, and they're a good team. Don't get me wrong. I love what Kurt Signe is doing there. And then Ohio State obviously closes with the game against Michigan. That'll be in Columbus this year. So this game will just put more. It'll just put more pressure on the team that loses. So Ohio State comes in now. Interesting the way these teams are matched up. Ohio State's offense is averaging 510 yards per game. Oregon's 458. Oregon's one of those teams who can, unlike Ohio State's earlier opponents this year, when you look at the teams they've played against, most of those teams have come in with the idea they're going to be able to run the ball and try to keep the ball away from the Buckeye offense. And when Ohio State jumps out to a lead, usually it's been late second quarter or into the third quarter, they jump out to a bigger lead, it forces these other teams to abandon the running game and pass the ball more. And most teams weren't comfortable doing that. Oregon's one who can do it. So Ohio State comes, like I say, averaging 510 yards a game on offense. Oregon 458, very close. OSU is rushing for 222 yards a game behind, obviously, Quinshon Judkins and TreVeyon Henderson. Henderson's averaging 8 yards a carry is what he's averaging so far. Judkins averaging like 7.6. Oregon gets 164 rushing per game. Ohio State's passing 288. Oregon's got the edge there. They're averaging 294 yards passing behind Dillon Gabriel. Look at the defense. The defense, again, a lot of similarities here as far as the numbers go. Ohio State's first in the country, averaging 202 yards per game total offense. Oregon's averaging 263.4. Ohio State's rushing defense, averaging just 72.6 a game yards allowed. Oregon 101. OSU's pass defense, allowing just 129.8 yards per game. Oregon allowing 162.8. Both teams have got really solid defenses. And let's talk about the quarterbacks, Dillon Gabriel and Will Howard. Gabriel, who came in from Oklahoma, these guys played against each other in the Big 12 last couple of years. Gabriel with Oklahoma and Will Howard with Kansas State, obviously. Gabriel comes in completing 78% of his passes. He's got 11 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, but he has been sacked 7 times. The Oregon offensive line had struggles early on, and I think they've rectified most of that, but they have not played a defense on the level of Ohio State's. Howard comes in averaging, he's completing 71.5% of his passes. He's got 12 touchdowns, also 3 interceptions. He's only been sacked twice. Now, part of that could be because Howard, he's very mobile quarterback. And so he's helped out a lot in that regard. Ohio State's running game, I told you about Henderson and Judkins. And looking at the Oregon running game, now, they've got a guy in their team who rushed for 166 last week, Jordan James, 166 rushing yards against Michigan State last week. He's averaging 6.3 yards a carry and has scored 5 touchdowns this year. The receivers for Oregon are the most talented Ohio State has faced this year and will likely be the most talented they face for the entire regular season. They've got Tez Johnson, and Tez Johnson's only 5'10", 165. He's a slippery guy, and he leads them by far in receptions with 43 catches for 395 yards and 5 touchdowns. He's going to be the one they have to stop, really, and focus on him. I'm curious how Ohio State's physicality, if it will affect Tez Johnson. Now, he's fast enough that it might not matter, but Ohio State will have to try to impose their will on him and make him uncomfortable. Like I said, 5'10", 165. And I think Ohio State they should key on him. The other guy for them, Trayshawn Holden, he's a little bit different beast. He's only got 19 catches, tied for second on the team for 274 yards and 3 touchdowns, but he is 6'3", 205. So it's a great mix there of size with the receivers for Oregon. They also got Evan Stewart. Evan Stewart transferred from Texas A&M and they were hoping he'd have a huge impact. Hasn't done much so far. I think he's got 16 receptions, but he's a big-time talent, somebody they have to pay attention to. Oregon's receivers, like I said, are probably the best Ohio State will face in the regular season this year. We know about Ohio State's receivers, Mecca Ibuka and Jeremiah Smith. They've combined for over 900 total yards and 10 touchdowns. And so that's going to be a huge test, just like the same way Ohio State's facing their best receivers they're probably going to face all year. Same thing for Oregon. Oregon's defense is going to face the best receivers they're going to face in the regular season. The key for this, Ohio State's going to have to really apply pressure to Dylan Gabriel, make him uncomfortable. And if they can do that, I think that Ohio State will have success. They also have to make sure they avoid the slow start. That's the other big thing with this is Ohio State cannot start slowly like they have in recent, 7 points against Iowa at the half or whatever. 7 points Iowa at the half. Michigan State game, they started off slowly. We know they started off slowly against Akron and Western Michigan. And Marshall, for that matter. Every game they've started off slowly this year. They can't afford to do that. Ohio State will make adjustments for sure in the second at halftime, but they cannot afford to score 7 points or score 10 points in the first half against Oregon. Can't afford to fall behind by a couple of touchdowns against Oregon in the first half. I do think it'll be a chess match early on, as both teams kind of feel each other out. Chip Kelly making his return to Oregon after having so much success here as a head coach in Eugene. And Oregon has got the kind of offense, though, that can keep up with Ohio State. And so, they pass the ball very well, whereas the teams in the past I talked about they played against this year, Ohio State, they force teams to be uncomfortable. It'll be tough, I think, for Ohio State to force Oregon to feel uncomfortable. They're playing at home. It's a night game. Gameday, well, it's a night game, but it's 4:30 here in Oregon. But it's a primetime game television-wise, though. Gameday is going to be here. It's going to be an incredible atmosphere in Eugene. So, by the way, let's talk about Oregon's defense again briefly one more time here. They have allowed 14 points. Ohio State's allowed 14 points just one time this year, and that was to Marshall. Oregon has allowed 14 points a couple of times, but they also had the one game where they allowed 34 to Boise State. They beat Boise State 37-34, nail biter at the end, but that's the best win among both teams either team has had. I know that Iowa was a decent team coming in, but still Boise State, I believe, is better than Iowa, and they certainly have a better running game than Iowa had. And so it'll be interesting to see how all that matches up. The stadium, Austin Stadium is only seats 54,000. It's a much smaller venue, much more quaint venue versus the 100,000 plus you see at the Horseshoe when the Buckeyes play at home. That'll be interesting as well. It's a blackout game for Oregon. I will tell you. So obviously, you'll be able to see from TV how many Ohio State fans are there because they'll be all the ones not wearing black. I will tell you that it seems like Buckeye Nation has traveled well to this game. Again, on the flights out, lots of Ohio State fans I saw at the airport and whatnot. There's a lot of events going on with like the Portland chapter of the Ohio State alumni. They're down here in Eugene for an event tonight. And I'm curious to see how many Buckeye fans are at the game. Should be a great environment. And like I say, big chance for Ohio State to stay undefeated in the Big Ten and take some pressure off any future games, and big chance for Ohio State to make a statement with Oregon. Oregon early on was like a 2-point underdog, then it went to 2.5, then it was 3, and now Ohio State's a 3.5-point favorite in this game. So lots of the betting money is going towards Ohio State. I do think Ohio State will cover. I would have liked it a lot better at 2.5. If you're going to bet it, I would recommend trying to tease it down to 2.5 if you can. But it wouldn't surprise me if Ohio State win this game by 10 points either. So I just, obviously a little less confident giving up the 3.5 versus giving up 2.5, which I would have rather done. I expect big games out of the running backs, and I think Will Howard has a nice game too as well. We'll see if Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka can keep building on what they're doing already this year, and we'll see if with the special teams, which was better against Iowa, we'll see if it continues to improve as we get to this game against Eugene on Saturday night, 7:30 Eastern time, 4:30 out here in Eugene. So thanks so much for tuning in. Again, at It Happens, where you can find me on the X. Would love to hear from you, and go download the FanStream Sports app. It's free for Apple and Android users. Do all that, and we'll talk again after the game. I'll even give a live update during the game as well. You can get a chance to see the atmosphere live in person on Saturday night. Go Bucks.